peeps, Amma here. If you're new, welcome to the channel. On this channel, we engage in thought-provoking conversations for unity and change. If you'd like to be part of this movement for change, hit that subscribe button and turn on your post notifications so that you are notified whenever I upload a new video. We have seen a rising trend of corruption by government officials and corporates in Southern Africa, where huge sums of money have been looted. Corruption is something that we need to deal with to allow countries to recover from COVID-19 and for the government to fulfill their constitutional obligation to deliver services to people. With me is Evidence James, who is a master's student at the University of Cape Town. He is also a Masterclass scholar as well as an author. Thank you so much, James, for joining me in studio and for allowing the time to talk about this issue.
Thank you, Amma, for having me. It's a pleasure.
James, just to give a background to this conversation, can you paint a picture of the nature and extent of corruption in light of recent developments and trends in South Africa and Zimbabwe?
Thank you, Amma. I mean, the subject of corruption.
Yeah.
It's really something that we need to talk about. I don't think we can ever talk about it enough because of what's happening. It seems like the rates of corruption are really rising. They are on the rise, and we really need to continue talking about this. It's like an everyday thing, servicing a car in a way. So just to paint that picture that you asked me for the benefit of the audience, I think it would be very important rather to begin by trying to understand what is corruption. What is corruption? And I think in simple terms, corruption would be it can be understood as dishonest behavior or fraudulent behavior, mainly because the focus more is on public officials. So it's mainly by public officials where they abuse office, right? They abuse their power for personal gain. So be it obtaining property, obtaining bribes in the form of money. Yeah, so that would be corruption, but it's more deeper than that. It's more deeper than that because an individual who bribes a public official is being corrupt. So there are specific laws now, that really defines in very finer terms what corruption is. Right. So just to paint this picture for South Africa and Zimbabwe, I would probably begin with looking at the recent scandals, of corruption in both countries, just putting it side by side. If we look at South Africa, there's been corruption, for a very long time by public officials. I think the highlight of it was, state capture. State capture was the highlight of it, and that caused the former president Jacob Zuma to establish the Zondo Commission on state capture, right? So there's been corruption tied to ESCOM, SABC, right? And just recently, we have seen a spike in corruption that is related to tenders, the award of tenders, where we have got people that are politically connected, right, getting tenders where they were not supposed to be getting such tenders.
Yeah, what do you mean they were not supposed to get? You mean they didn't go through the right channel of getting tenders, or what do you mean? Can you just elaborate on what you mean they were not supposed to?
So there are laws that regulates, can I say, what people who are politically connected can do, right? So it's more like the wife of the president or the first lady getting a tender, So there are favors that comes with occupying a certain position or being related to someone, and that can actually give someone a competitive edge, in a way. So like the rules that relates to, sometimes people actually have to disclose to say, I'm related to so and so, I'm related to the president, I'm related to so and so, to disclose the nature of their relationship, So some of these things were not happening. In fact, where people are not actually qualified to compete for a tender because of their relationship, with someone else.
Okay.
Yes, so that's one. I'm sure you have seen, is it the presidential spokesperson or this lady, someone who is related to her got a tender, and there was an outcry all over saying, no, that person was not supposed to have, been awarded that tender and all that. Yes. And so that's something that's, if we're looking at, the trends and the scandals, and something else probably that we might not really miss to talk about is the VBS scandal that has pulled everyone into the mud pit. The EFF is being dragged in there, the ANC officials, they're being dragged into there. So that's another thing. And recently, after the COVID-19 outbreak, there's been a lot of tender shenanigans that have been happening in relation to protective equipment and protective clothing. Yes, where mine has been just disappearing, and people are really crying out immediately when the president announces that the government is committing so much money towards fighting COVID-19. People are like, that's another opportunity for you to steal. So yes, there's been things like that. Crossing over to Zim, we have always had corruption. I think every country has a certain level of corruption, right? It's just that it differs to the extent, in terms of the degree. Some countries, you've got people, those corrupt officials, they're trying to take everything, from the government coffers. So in Zim, if we can just touch on the recent trends, right? We have, I think one of the prominent cases is Minister Priscilla Mufumira. She actually has some properties here in South Africa. So money would disappear from Zim, and she's acquiring properties, in a neighboring country. So she's been, she's being charged for abuse of office in relation to like 92 million US dollars, right? Yeah, when she was a minister in another portfolio. That was from 2014 to 2017. And just recently, I think this COVID-19, it opened the doors for people to really steal, right, and loot. So imagine, there was a recent scandal of Drugs International Company. It's an international company that was being fronted by a gentleman called Dennis Nguyen, right? And this company was awarded a tender of about 60 million US dollars. It had sold government COVID-19 protective equipment, like inflated prices. You see those blue masks, those light masks, they'd been charged at 28 US dollars per mask. 28 US dollars. That's over 500 rand. Yeah, that's over 500 rand per mask. So, and we had an investigative journalist, Opo Chimoro. In fact, he was prosecuted for exposing that scandal, right? And that led to the firing of the then Minister of Health, Obadiah Moyo. Now he's being charged, for abuse of office, where he couldn't protect the government, from being charged such an inflated, price for this contract. And I think just to give you, in terms of statistics, if you want to understand corruption in terms of how are these two countries, South Africa and Zimbabwe, doing in relation to other countries, internationally, in terms of corruption. So, Transparency International, they publish indexes, right? That are called corruption perception index. Just to give in terms like fractions or ratios, like this now, how does this country rank? In terms of level of corruption.
Okay, this is gonna be
so South Africa, just 2019. So according to the 2019 report, South Africa is ranked at 70 out of 180 countries in terms of being the least corrupt country, right? And Zim is ranked at 158 over 100. That's more than double, right? And in other ways, they're saying on that scale, Zim is literally amongst this WhatsApp group of them of the most corrupt countries, right? And yes, I think it also goes back to the issue of transparency and accountability and all that. And I was actually speaking to someone saying the reason why we've got so many scandals that are being detected by the Hawks and by the Zondo Commission, it is because the system has got those mechanisms to detect them. And I can tell you, we don't have as much detection of corruption in Zim, right? Because the system is not working, right, to detect that. Well, in a way, it's captured, right, to detect that. Such that on the face of it, seems like there's no corruption. And yet, it's the most corrupt system around. Yes. So, probably just to round up, in showing that corruption is really problematic, the systems in both countries had to put in place mechanisms and institutions to specifically deal with corruption. It's just how problematic corruption is, right? Where Zim had to establish the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission just to deal specifically with corruption. And right now we have a specialized division of the High Court called the Anti-Corruption Court that specifically handles corruption cases. In terms of what's the result of it, is it working? That's another thing that we can talk about later on, right? But the fact that we've got these institutions being established specifically for corruption, that tells you how topical and important it is to deal with corruption. And coming to South Africa, so the legislature, the South African legislature, have enacted in 2014 an act of parliament that specifically deals, a whole legislation that specifically deals with corruption. So it's called the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities. Right? It's an act of 2014. It was enacted in 2014 that specifically deals with corruption. And now you also have the Zondo Commission, kind of like handling corruption that is related to state capture and things like that.
Based on what you've just said, one can clearly see that corruption is real. How damaging can this corruption be, considering that the state is primarily funded by taxpayers?
Certainly corruption is real. It's real. It's bad. It's not looking good. Looking at the extent, or rather, how damaging. I think we are really looking at in what way will corruption damage, and how deep. Is it damaging, and to who is it damaging? So, rather, let's look at how the funding happens, right? And we look at where does money come in and how does it go out. I think in that chain, that is where you get to see how the damage and the harm that corruption actually does. Because in essence, corruption is more like leakage. There's a leakage somewhere in the system. It's like a tap water, leaking tap water somehow. So from this point you've got 5 liters, and somewhere along the way it leaks. And when the water gets to the other end of the pipe,
Yeah.
You've got 3 liters, you know, because of that leakage. So corruption is basically leakage. Basically means the money that has been collected by government, right, by way of your income taxes, by way of your value-added taxes, your import duty, you know, excise duty, all these various kinds of taxes. That money is supposed to be used for certain things, right, to fund your education, housing, infrastructure development, social security, right, and of course running the government itself, right? Because government really has a lot of employees, they have to be paid, right? This money is not gonna be used efficiently for these things because of corruption. I mean, part of the money is gonna go into somebody's pocket where it's not supposed to go.
Yeah.
Right? What then happens? It means government needs more money.
Yeah, because it's no longer
The money is no longer sufficient, right? So we might not talking. I think at any point government will need more money, right? Just that at that particular moment, because of corruption, the money that is there is now fewer. It's now, you know, lesser than what it was supposed to be, right? Now government needs more money. What's going to happen? Government needs to borrow, right?
Yeah.
Needs to borrow now, and there's something that comes. There's a cost that comes with borrowing. Government has to service those debts, right? And if you see right now in South Africa, the servicing costs, they're shooting up, right? So that's one thing. Government needs to borrow more, and they have to pay more interest on those debts because they need to fund, you know, all these things that we've mentioned. Another point is government now can consider raising taxes, right, in order to raise more money, because they can't borrow the remainder or the shortfall there, because it would just be too much. Because when you're borrowing, it's a fixed loan, you're gonna pay, you know, this interest out of a particular time. So if you raise taxes, you're basically taking money from taxpayers, you don't have to repay it back, right?
Yeah.
Now, here is where trouble is. When government increases tax rates, we have to look at who is paying tax.
Yeah.
That's where you really see the harm. I tell you, your child pays tax. And someone will say, but it's just a minor.
I know.
Yes, they pay tax through VAT, right? By way of value-added tax. They go to, you know, they're going to school, they're going to pass by, you know, the shops, they're going to buy lunch, they're going to buy breakfast, they are paying VAT. The disabled people that you have even helped with money, they will swipe something there, they're going to buy something there, they're going to pay tax, right? The elderly, they are paying tax. So all the people that are supposed to be helped, they are paying tax. But that is not where the problem is. The problem is VAT is increasing. It was 14%, now it's 15%. And the reason why it has to be increased from time to time is because mostly they are increasing leakages, you know, as a result of corruption, right? Just to end it, the more there's corruption, the more government is going to struggle in, you know, providing housing. The more it's going to struggle in funding education and funding public health, right? In providing infrastructure.
Like in short, they're going to struggle to fulfill their obligations.
Constitutional obligations.
Yeah.
They're going to struggle to do that. So that is basically like the harm. And I can tell you, if you want to track it down, immediately when government fails to do these things, you would see people losing jobs, right? You see people losing jobs. People lose jobs. Next thing, you've got gender-based violence happening in the houses because there isn't enough, right? Next thing, some people, they fall into depression because of this unemployment and the gender-based
xenophobic attacks.
Yeah.
So all social issues,
things,
there's crime.
They
so
got
all drug abuse.
And it's all starting from someone who thought of taking money that is not supposed to, you know, that they're not supposed to take.
It is really shocking to see how corruption can be a cause to social issues such as crime. I mean, one wouldn't think that crime can be related to someone stealing taxpayers' money. We have looked at the nature and extent of corruption and how damaging this corruption can be. I would like us to now look at what could be the reasons to this rampant corruption that we are observing.
Yeah. No, yeah, certainly. It's quite something that if you don't really look closely and examine, one would just think corruption is corruption and what's happening there, it doesn't touch us, it doesn't affect us. If they loot money there, we are in another province, we are cool. That's not the case. It really goes down to the ordinary person and it bites that ordinary person. Coming to the cause for this rampant corruption that we are seeing, I think I would like to I would first say corruption has not always been the same. Like corruption differs from one point to another, and sometimes it also differs with administrations, right? So I would really feel that the kind of corruption that we are seeing now, it has not been the same. If we just look back just a few years back, right? It's not the same. Right now it seems like there's a killing spree, like there's a party, everyone is stealing, Yeah, so right now things are not really looking good. It's really bad. Well, let's look at the causes of corruption. And this is what I think. The root cause of corruption is culture, right? Perception. What do I mean? Let's look at what do leaders think. What is the purpose? What is the aim of getting into leadership and governance? Right? What is the motive for doing that? We need to look at that. And we also have to look at what are the perceptions of the public, members of the public. What is their perception of leadership and governance? Right? How do they see leaders? And how close do they think they are to leaders? I think there are three phrases that can capture this misconception of politics, governance, and leadership, right? Which I think are shared by both leaders and the general public, such that it creates a very perfect, an environment for corruption.
Okay.
Right? So you have got a perception that, okay, it's not my time, right? Someone thinks it's not my time to also loot, or rather to benefit in a way. So that's when you see that people compete for positions. They are not competing to go and serve people. They're saying, it's not my turn. You've been benefiting. Now it's not my turn to get in. So there's that misconception, thinking that it's like a bounty, And another phrase, I think, which can capture this rot in culture is someone thinking, no, the money belongs to the state, and the state is seen as a no man's land. So if money is...
Is this the ordinary people now thinking that?
Both ordinary people and
okay.
government officials, right? People in position of power. So immediately an ordinary person pays tax. You realize that most people, they don't make a follow-up. They're like, no, I've paid, I have discharged my tax obligations, and they look away. They say, I'm okay. Whatever that's going to happen there, it doesn't have anything to do with me. That money belongs to the state, right? The state. So I'm going to touch on what it does, and how that kind of understanding contributes to corruption. On the part of the government officials, they're saying, well, taxpayers have paid the money. Now the money belongs to the state. Belongs to the to the state now, and they cannot tell us what to do or how things must be done, because it's no longer their money. The money belongs to the state, and we can do anything that we want with the money. So in a way, it's more like a no man's land. You've got Zimbabwe on the other side, you've got South Africa on the other side. There's this land where you can do whatever that you want, and really you're not accountable to anyone. So there's that, because that money cannot be attributed to a particular person to say this money belongs to Ama, this money belongs to so that if I take it, I feel there's this immediate feeling of guilty that I've taken this money, because the state is not a person who's gonna say someone stole my money, you know, because it's a legal person, you know. So there's that, and I think another phrase I think that can actually capture this: finders keep. That's the actual phrase. Yeah. Finders keep, right? Someone says, when I'm in government, if I come across a deal or an opportunity, I'm lucky. You know, it's in a way it's a blessing. I'm lucky because this thing didn't come to someone else. Or if I got someone who wants to be awarded a tender and they're offering me a golden handshake, you know, since it's been offered to me, I take it. Yeah. It was not offered to someone else, so I take this. Finders keep. I'm lucky.
Yeah,
right? It's my chance.
Yeah.
I take it. So here's what it does to corruption. To the leaders who think this way, and actually feel most of our leaders, they think in this way. Because if they didn't think in this way, we wouldn't have people killing each other, like these political killings. We wouldn't be having those. If you want to sign, it seems like if you want to sign a death sentence for yourself, just show interest to be a counselor somehow. Because if someone else was like, hey, it's my chance, don't show up. If you show up, you know, yes. So there's that. So what happens with public officials? They say, you know, this money belongs to the state. They don't really feel any guilty, you know, for the corruption, right? So in a way, there's some justification and consolation that I'm not really taking anyone's money. There's no case that comes with it. Taxpayers and public officials, if they understand that a state is similar to a stock value, it is similar to a joint venture. That way, that consolation and the distancing which they do, either from holding public officials to account as taxpayers, or not feeling so guilty because they feel the money is not attributed to a living person or someone else who could case you if you steal it. Now, what happens with the Stokvel? In a Stokvel, probably we are 6 in a Stokvel. The money that is put in a Stokvel is there to benefit the members of a Stokvel. If there is income generation, it's going to generate it for the benefit of the Stokvel.
Yeah.
And you account for each and every cent.
Sure.
And it's rarely a case where one of the members of the Stokvel is going to take all the money,
Yeah, true.
right, and put it in their pocket. Because everyone else will storm them immediately and say, you took the money, right? And right now, I can say this is analogous to the state.
Yeah.
And you know, members of the public. The taxpayers' money is the money that is put in the Stokvel. The population, the taxpayers, public officials, they are the members of the Stokvel, right?
Yeah.
And this money, these taxes and all that, they are meant, you know, to fund things like your education, the things that we've mentioned, you know, basically service delivered for the benefit of the members of this Stokvel.
Yeah, true.
We are basically pulling resources together and say, you can have your own tiny factory that manufactures the clothes for your family, or manufacture or process food for your tiny family. That would be duplication of resources. What do? If we are going to utilize these limited resources that we have in the most efficient way, one person is going to do this, we're going to put resources together.
Yeah.
So, why is it easy for a public official to steal money from the Stokvel than it is easy for a member of this small Stokvel to steal money from this smaller group?
We should hold them accountable.
Yes, the same way members of the Stokvel would hold accountable a member of the Stokvel who steals money from the Stokvel, should be the same way that taxpayers should hold accountable a public official who steals money from the state Stokvel, this bigger Stokvel.
Yeah.
Yes, instead of distancing themselves.
You have mentioned earlier on that Zim has established an anti-corruption court and an anti-corruption commission, and that South Africa has a legislation to prevent corruption, as well as the Zondo commission. Are these measures enough to deal with corruption? And if not, what can be done to deal with this issue?
Thank you. So, yes, you correctly pointed, those measures that I've pointed earlier on, and these are not only, are not the only measures that are in place, because you have your police force, you have got your hawks, right, who've been doing, I think they've been living up to the name, to their name, right? They've been, there have been a lot of, arrests of high-profile, individuals, just recently, that are, related to corruption and things like that. Yes, so, yes, certainly that being the, what is being done about corruption, it's not working as it should be. It's not working as it should be, because if it was, we wouldn't have this explosion of corruption. It means the system is defective somehow, right? So, what needs to be done? There is more that needs to be done. One of those things is efficiency. We need efficient systems. With efficient systems, I mean we need to employ competent people in certain departments, right, who are going to handle processes, compliance effectively, right? We need the government to employ sufficient staff in certain areas and departments, such that there is no incentive for anyone else to want to bribe someone in order to skip a line or to make the processes easier for them, because already the processes are easier because there is sufficient staff that is, rendering those services. Another point, or rather a measure, or an area of improvement in order to enhance the current system is, as much, it could have financial implications, but I do feel that in the short term, it could help government to protect and pay whistleblowers, right? This is kind of unconventional, but if you see, it's not new practice. Say anyone would, you could always see if there's a wanted criminal, they put a prize for that, right? Why not put a prize for someone who whistleblow and government saves up on and prevents corruption that runs to millions of dollars, millions of dollars, millions of friends? Why not? Why not pay whistleblowers? And definitely those whistleblowers, they need to be protected, right? So that's one. Another point is there is need to pay or remunerate government employees at some acceptable level, right? So a certain level of remuneration, one would call it a commensurate remuneration, right? It's reasonable remuneration, such that you remove or you reduce the incentive to want to take bribes, because you are paying your employees sufficiently such that they focus on doing the job instead of trying to supplement the small salary that you're paying them.
Okay, so you're saying if we decide to increase the salaries,
Yeah.
if before increasing the salaries, if there were 10 employees involved in corruption,
Yeah.
if we increase the salary out of 10, we will now have maybe 5.
Yes. So certainly it will not eliminate
Yeah.
corruption, but
Yeah.
it will reduce,
Okay.
corruption.
Okay.
Yes, and that's why even you see the judges are paid well, to make sure that the courts are independent and they are not bought, right?
Yeah.
Yes, they are not bought, because really it's an important institution. And I think that should also be done with your law enforcement, right? Because they are dealing with the guys who are, who are dealing in drugs, guys who are, trafficking things like ivory and all that and gold, and immediately they capture that person, and that person offers them 1 kg of gold, and now they're gonna look at their monthly salary and say, do I go with the gold or?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
immediately you've got that kind of a scenario, and I think it does help if government can work around the remuneration, especially on these strategic areas as well. Yes. So another issue would be training, right? Training and education. What I mean by this is the conscientization about corruption. I think it's something that is needed, that once in a while government needs to run, to conduct workshops, as a way of reminding its employees, right, of the need to prevent corruption, the need to be honest in terms of, when they're serving people. I think you would see this by the promotion of, Batopele principles, serving people and things like that. Yeah, so I think a constant reminder would do, it keeps people on their toes, and to understand that they are serving people.
Yeah.
They are not there
Yeah.
to benefit, right? Yes. So, and with education, it can even go as far as, go to matric, right? Where learners are not only taught about how bad corruption is from a distance, rather they must be taught as partners and people who are going to either stand in the shoes of the person who's going to be corrupt or the person who's going to be a victim of corruption. That way you are bringing corruption home and its effects, such that they will begin to condemn corruption from a very early age. Another, there's quite a lot, right? There's quite a lot. We can't exhaust the list, but I think this is very, very important, right? We need efficient systems in terms of the judiciary and the prosecution. I can give you this example. At one time, the sitting president of Zimbabwe, he was on an interview. He was decrying, the rampant corruption in Zimbabwe. Of course, we're not going to talk about was he sincere and things like that. So that is a story for another day. But he made a very correct assessment. He says there is a catch and release kind of system that is happening, where corrupt people, corrupt officials, they are arrested, but they are not prosecuted, or they are prosecuted, but they get off the hook when they go to court, because the entire system is corrupted. If there is no corruption in the police, the corruption will be there in the prosecution authority, right? If there is no corruption there, the corruption will be found in court, in the judiciary. So these systems are very, very important. You know, to protect them, to safeguard these systems, especially your law enforcement, prosecution, and the judiciary, because these are systems that, if they are effective, they will deter corrupt activities, right? Because someone is going to be arrested, they're going to be prosecuted, and they are going to be sentenced, convicted and sentenced, and pay for their, conduct, corrupt conduct. But without that, if a corrupt person knows that he can bribe a prosecutor, if they know they can bribe the police officer, if they know they're going to bribe the judge, then somehow they find a way of escaping the system. Efficiency in this system, it means we get to take hold and control corruption.
It's really important how you emphasize that we may not be able to completely eradicate it, but we can try our best just to reduce it.
Significantly, actually. Significantly.
Wow, that was really thought-provoking. I enjoyed listening to that, and I think the public needs to hear this because we have the power, and it starts with us, because this is our money as well that we are dealing with. It's our money.
So this understanding by itself, you find it difficult to even look at a police officer or a government official asking you for the money, because immediately you are so conscious, you are aware of what are the implications, what does it mean. And you don't take things like just to say, I know it's just a drink. It's just a drink, but how is it affecting society?
Absolutely.
So in a way, we are like people who are throwing plastic in the ocean. We are throwing,
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much, James.
Thank you, Amma.
For creating the time to share your thoughts on corruption.
Thank you for the platform, and we continue to learn and assist. These will be our own little ways of adding to value to society, unity, development. It begins with things like this.
They say be the change you want to see.
Be the change you want to see. So yes, no to corruption.
If you have any thoughts about today's conversation, please leave them in the comment section below. And if you have enjoyed this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up. Until we meet again next week Saturday, take care and bye.